All right. Thank you, Adriana, for joining us today. So this is great. Always nice to see a nice new face. And for those who may not know you, please tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm gladly. Thanks for having me. My name is Adriana Stepenko. I've been a real estate investor for about 8 years now.
Nice.
I immigrated originally from Brazil at the age of 13. My mom, who's a single mom, brought my sister and I over to Canada, and we lived very much an immigrant life. We don't come from any financial background or financial literacy. My mom
Hmm.
never invested, not even in stocks. She had her funds in GICs and
So what got you started? What did you see? What did you read? Who'd you talk to?
yeah. So for a lot of people, what causes change is a lot of pain, usually comes from pain. And you're like, oh my gosh, something's got to change in my life. In my case, my first career in life was as a pastor. I was a pastor in a Christian church for many years.
Wow. That's
And
fascinating story. That's very exciting. A pastor. I've got to ask, what led you to become a pastor?
yeah, so when we immigrated from Brazil, I ended up, we had a connection at a Brazilian church, and they became my family because they spoke Portuguese and it was my culture.
Oh,
Didn't really have religion before then. And over time, by attending the church, I just really connected with the message and with the spirituality of it. Felt like I had a really deep understanding of, things beyond the material world, and decided to study and be able to become an ordained pastor, which I did.
that's amazing.
uh,
Congratulations.
Thank you. However, towards the end of that process, or by the time I was acting as a pastor, I felt really disconnected from myself, and I felt just
Hmm.
this lack of synergy and lack of integrity within myself, that I
Hmm.
thought there's something off here. It took me some time, but I became way more spiritual than religious, and ended up leaving the church at
Hmm.
some point, um, and was just kind of figuring out what to do next. My husband and I had bought our first primary home. It took us about 7 years to save a down payment for a primary home, a townhouse in Mississauga
Hmm.
in Ontario. And soon after we had moved in, my mom went through a mental health issue and moved in with us.
Okay.
And I had two little babies at home. My son was just
Wow.
about a year, and my daughter was just about two. And I thought, oh my God, like, how am I gonna, not only support my kids, but now my mom? And how do people do this? We're pretty much living paycheck to paycheck. We had put all of our money into this house. Um, there must be a way to build wealth that is
That is
not.
definitely pain. Most people talk about discomfort. This is definitely pain. That's a lot there. Wow. So what did you read? Who did you speak to? You're looking for a way out of some sort to get finance to get some more money, I imagine.
Yeah. So and here's the thing: like, when we ask ourselves the right questions, it leads us to the right answers, right? So
Very
the
well,
question
yes.
was, how do people create wealth? How do you build wealth? And just by asking that question, I started to see wealth around me. I all of a sudden was becoming
Mm.
aware of different means of wealth, and there was a couple that came into our lives at that time. My husband had just started his construction business. He was a tile installer through his college years, and then had started a full-on construction business. And he was working for a couple that was doing high-end flips in Caledon. And he said, you got to come see this house. I've never seen anything like that. It's
It's a mansion?
beautiful. Yeah, it was this, like, I never walked
Yeah,
into any house looking like
yeah.
that. And I'm like, I'm coming. So I went and I met the owner, who wasn't that much older than us. And she told me what she was doing in real estate. And I thought, there's wealth in real estate. Like, how about I go learn how to do that?
That's amazing. That's amazing. I like to know the connection between spirituality and wealth. I think those who are spiritual are also very wealthy in material sense, but also in other senses as well, relationship and internal world as well. I find that very fascinating.
I love that conversation, by the way, because it wasn't as much as one of the reasons why I left the church was there was some sort of like a almost a vow to poverty there.
Yes.
You're
Very
supposed
common.
to serve people sacrificially,
Yes.
not really desiring material things. Money
Yeah.
is evil. And that there was something inside of me telling me this
There's
is
something
not
wrong with
right.
that. I mean,
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong. I understand the extreme of things is greed. Of course, no one wants to be greedy. But imagine if you had an abundance of wealth, an abundance of money, potentially, you could help even more people.
And
And you have.
yeah, which is
I just because this is so a unique situation, and I've got to kind of touch upon that because I feel myself to be a spiritual individual, and I feel that there's less and less coincidences in my life, and I like the idea of wealth and spirituality is connected. How do you see the connection between a spiritual being and wealth that comes about?
Yeah, so money is energy, and
Well put.
so are we.
Yes.
Really, we can create any reality and any energy that comes from within us into the material world. We do live in a material world, and therefore, but it starts within our energy and vibration first.
Totally
so
agree.
By creating the right
Totally
frequencies,
yes,
we really create any amount of wealth that we really desire.
And they just didn't follow with that. They didn't vibe with that.
No.
Okay.
No. And I didn't know that at the time.
Yes.
Like I was just, again, there's so much control within the church that eventually I really lost my identity. I didn't even know who I was anymore. I was just a repetition of what I was being told to say. Okay. And there was clearly something so off. Like I actually went into a deep depression for the last 3 years, got into medication just before I left the church. That's how like disconnected I was with myself and my source and who I am. And from God too. I was so disconnected from it all, even though it was in the name of God and service and religion. So obviously,
how long did you do this? Or how long were you a pastor?
I started attending the church at about 13, 14. I became really serious about when I was like 17, 16, 15, 16, 17, around there. And then went straight after high school. I did a 4 years Bachelor of Arts in Religious Studies, and I did a 3-year Master's of Divinity in order to get ordained.
It's amazing. That's amazing. So you're committed. You're all in.
I was all in, and it was in the name of, again, service and like bringing lights, but wasn't really feeling any of that inside at the time.
Okay.
And again,
how long when you did start? At what point after a while you said, this isn't for me, this is not what I imagined?
So soon after I finished my degree and got ordained, I felt like I had climbed the peak. I had arrived at a destination, whatever that was, in my head.
Yes.
And then I got there, I'm like, this is it? Like, okay. I might as well get back down now,
Okay, so you see this mansion in Caledon with your husband. You're in awe, and you speak to the person. You're saying, "How did you do this?" And they told you real estate. Was that it? Was that the answer?
Yeah, they were doing flips. Ultimately, they would purchase a home, live in it for a year, renovate it, and then do it again. And they had been building all this wealth, and my answer was, I see there's wealth in real estate, because the numbers she was talking about, I hadn't ever even thought of it. So
what was the house worth?
At the house at the time, and this was a while back, I don't remember, like 1.6 million.
Yeah.
And they were selling it, and they had bought it for like 700,000. Yeah. So
it had 7 bathrooms, like how many rooms? Like
it was massive. It was a big mansion. Like I think there was 5 bedrooms. That she said she was thinking of putting like $200,000 in the backyard alone, and I was like, what? That's crazy to me, So now it was so nice to see and experience, because that's the thing. You're asking the question. The universe is bringing you the answer, is bringing something to your awareness. Now your job is to receive. And I received a message that day. I've never done a flip, by the way, because that wasn't really my strategy, but I received a message that day. I got home and I went on Google and I said, how do you invest in real estate?
Okay.
Literally ask the question again. And a couple of events came up, workshops, or at that time it was Scott McGivery with Keyspire.
Of course.
There was a free event being, offered. I signed up, went to the events, heard what he had to say, signed up for the next thing afterwards, a 3-day workshop, and went to the workshop. And at that workshop, I made a decision. I'm like, I'm doing this. I know I can do this.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like your perspective. I like the way you word things and the way you see things as well, because I definitely can relate to that. Sometimes I feel that real estate investing is like a religion for some people.
It's like a what?
It's like a religion for some people.
Yeah, sure.
Everyone drinks the Kool-Aid. It's kind of an extreme. There's a lot of hope and promises that are delivered with it, and some of it isn't. But once again, we're not going to get into the negatives of the real estate investing world. But sometimes I feel like it's a lot of hope and dreams that are thrown out there, especially for these new events. But so what did you do first what property did you first buy?
So the very, very first thing that we ended up doing was we duplexed my townhouse in Mississauga.
Yeah, smart.
We had an empty basement. It was not the easiest one because it was a townhouse. So I had to go to the city of Mississauga about 9 times. And they would say, no, you can't. And I'd be like, why not? Can you show me the bylaw? And then they would. I'm like, what about this? And they're like, okay, fine. You can submit eventually. So I did, and we got it officially duplexed. And that was my very first experience with permitting and city and tenanting and all of it. And the construction piece of getting it like a legal, apartment in. Our second property, we ended up buying a single family home in Hamilton for $340,000. This is 2018. I converted it into a legal fourplex. It was about 8 months of a lot of work and stress.
That's awesome. Most people do like duplex after duplex. You just threw it into a fourplex. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, the house was massive, and I was determined. Like, there was nobody that was going to stop me at that point. And once again, just like with the basement apartments, I heard a lot of no's. People like, no, you can't do that. I'm like, zoning wise, I can. Like, so then it's just logistics of the building itself. And we kept working on solutions. Like, we fired one of the designers because she was unwilling to look at options until I found somebody that would. And we went ahead and made it into a legal fourplex. And I got spoiled right away because I'm like, I love fourplexes out of the smaller multifamily, like that 4th unit's pure cash flow. So we were cash flowing quite nicely. We were also able to turn it over. By the time we were done, it was, worth $700,000. We pulled our money out.
Nice.
And then we went and did it again.
Awesome. So So tell me more. Tell me more of the opportunities, the deals. You seem like you're driven for this as well.
I was. You talked about being like obsessed. I was definitely obsessed. That became my life. And I also started working for Keyspire at that time.
Really?
Soon after I did my workshop, they were hiring. I applied and got a job working for them. So it was quite fun. Like I would travel with Scott McGivery's team across the country, and we did some US events as well. And Monday to Friday, I was doing real estate, and I was in the job sites and managing the renovations.
Did you have children as well? I mean, you said you mentioned children.
I do.
So you had children and you're traveling. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, I put a lot of work, and I like telling my story because it's possible. Not easy, but it's possible, with kids and with mom and with,
So what do you tell people? What do you tell, especially women who hear the story and they're like, yeah, I don't think it's possible. They're thinking, you had it easy. It's easier. You should understand my situation. What would you tell them?
Well, there are sacrifices that, happen at the end of the day. You gotta put some effort here, some effort. I did have my mom with me, so she helped a lot with the kids. Mm-hmm. I practice something that I call intentional time, where when I'm with them, I put my phone down, I'm present. I'm not trying to multitask when I'm with them because I can't be with them all the time. And I mean, mind you, I have a really beautiful life now where I do have quite a bit of time with them.
Yes, of
But I
course.
didn't in the beginning.
You have to sacrifice a bit. There's always a bit of give and take, of course. I like your approach, definitely.
Yeah. So we ended up doing 5 of those. We just kept rinsing and repeating the model that we had done on the first one.
And how long were you with the group where you're traveling, going to shows? And...
I was with them for about 4 years.
Wow.
Until COVID. And then we got laid off. Yeah.
Yes.
It was a fun time. I could tell it was coming near the end of my time there, just time to do other things. But I had so much fun and we had grown like so close as a family there. So definitely hard to leave, but COVID did it for me. It's like, no, you got to go.
Yeah. It's time.
Time to scale. Yeah. So by the end I had spent, and like, that was my full-time gig besides the traveling, 3.5 to almost 4 years doing this full time. And I was doing everything. I was finding the deals. I was financing the deals. I was raising capital. I was managing the projects, and then I was property managing the properties. And
were you also coaching people in the group?
I wasn't coaching. I was just, it was more of a sales job. We would go out and sell the events.
Yes.
I got to the end of it and I was like, first of all, I'm burned out. I'm exhausted. I've been going nonstop for a few years. I've been doing all these different things. I cannot talk about construction anymore. I just felt so done with it. Like, I cannot. I'm like, how do I scale? So back to the questions. How do I scale but do less was my question. I don't want to scale and do more than I'm doing now. There's wealthy people out there that seem to have a lot of time and a lot of money. So there is a way. And I went on this like search period, and I noticed that within my growth spurts, I always come to a point where I feel pretty tapped out, or like I reached the ceiling. I pause, I reflect, I ask some questions, I, go out and experience and search and, seek what else is out there, start having different conversations, meeting different people, joining different networks, until something really like connects and taps. And I'm like, oh, okay, this thing, I just know that it's this thing here. I like how you talk about the connection, because it seems as if it's an ongoing basis where you feel connected to something, you're fully in it, and then once you go, okay, my time's up, then you reconnect with something else. It's like a big connection is very important. I like that. Yeah, absolutely. And there's a constant process of reinventing myself, which, as you can imagine, it's not easy. It's a lot of work, and it's just, it puts you in a really vulnerable place of having to leave everything that you know and going out there in the unknown. But I also can't do it any other way, because I love growing and scaling and more like personal growth. I've become such a different person as I put myself out there.
I like that because I find business growth is so related to personal growth. One goes together. I don't see anyone who has huge business growth without the personal growth. It goes hand in hand.
Yeah, exactly. I know that whenever I want growth, I need to first grow in here. I need to personally.
Definitely. Okay, so you get laid off during COVID. What do you do during then? How was COVID for you?
Yeah, COVID was an interesting time for a lot of us, for sure.
Yes.
I had a couple weeks there of like pure freaking out, I'd say. The kids were home all of a sudden from school full time. I was laid off. Construction had orders of stopping. We were like, oh my God, like life just changed overnight. What do you do? And I felt
we're all think it's going to last a month or two, I think that's
what they were telling us. Don't worry, it's going to be a 3-week lockdown thing. Like, I went through about 2 weeks of like survival brain, of like just feeling just stress and anxiety and all the really low vibration emotions, until something just clicked within me and I'm like, I can't live like this. Like enough is enough. It's not going to take me or my mental health, So I started doing 75 hard. Have you heard about it?
Yeah, I have. That's awesome.
Yeah. So that was, a friend of mine had brought it to me and said, let's do this thing. And I'm like, okay, you know what? Let's do it.
So for those who may not know, describe exactly what it is.
Yeah, of course. So 75 Hard is a mental toughness challenge. And you have to pick a diet, and you cannot have any cheat days, and also no alcohol. That's really and you have to complete these tasks every day before, the 24-hour period is over, and then start again the next day. By the way, I did complete the challenge at that time. I've tried several times since to no success. But I did complete it, and it was quite life-changing. I did a few things to like step myself out. I started the 75 Hard. I had hired a like personal coach, a life coach, I call it. I had hired, and then I joined a new like networking group, a real estate mastermind, and just kind of exposing myself to new people that I didn't really know. And just went into this deep dive into like learning, podcasts, books. And one of the things that I worked with a life coach at the time, which let's bring back to the topic of money, was around money beliefs, because I had been doing the real estate for about 4.5 years, about 4 years at that point. And was like, okay, we've been able to acquire these properties, but I'm nowhere near finding financial freedom or being overflowing with money here. The cash flow is good, but like it also gets consumed pretty quickly if I have a tenant that doesn't pay rent, or if we have an issue.
A roof that needs to be fixed, it goes fast.
Yeah. So I'm like, so where's the money at again? Like I thought it was money real estate, like what's going on? So when I started working with the coach, we kind of went into this, I told him, I said, listen, I'd like more money. How do you do that? Right? Like he said, okay, how much do you want? I said, 100,000 would be nice this year. Like 100,000 would be great. He's like, okay, let's dive in. So he used NLP, and he used hypnosis to kind of dive into your subconscious and find out a bit more about like, what's your vibration around money? We didn't use the word vibration, but what are your beliefs around money? Have to really.
Would you share his name?
I can share his name. I don't know that I know like off the top of my head. This was a few years ago, but I can grab it for you.
Okay.
And we kind of dove into the beliefs around money that I had at the time. And coming from the family line that I did, and from the humble beginnings that I did, they were unfortunately very negative. Like money is never enough. Like you have to work so hard to get money. Like, it's just such a struggle. It doesn't.
My mother just assumed rich people were just greedy bastards.
Yeah, exactly. Like how evil people afford this? They must have gotten like from their parent, whatever, right? Like all these, and the emotions that came with it was fear and scarcity and necessity and desperation, like just really negative emotions. And he says it's going to be hard for you to allow money in until you're able to deal with that. It's like asking somebody to come and love you when you hate them. That doesn't work. You got to learn to love money, but in order to allow money in. And I was like, again, all in. I'm like, okay, show me how, I'm going to do this. So spend quite a bit of time, like, again, reading books and being very intentional. One of the first books that I read was Jen Sincero's You Are a Badass at Making Money. And she has this exercise on the book where she has you, and she works on like changing your money beliefs. She has you screaming at the top of your lungs that you love money. And I would go on my 75 Hard walks on the street and be like, I love money, just having a blast, yelling it out. And the most wonderful thing, like, so we started working on this. Within 6 months' time from that day, I had $1 million in my bank account.
That's amazing.
And it was the craziest experience, because it was like full evidence and proof of how much changing from the inside impacts and changes your reality on the outside and your material world.
Definitely.
And then my financial life has changed since then, which is continuing to improve in so many different ways. And I find I still reach ceilings and I'm like, okay, I've reached this ceiling now. Now let's go and break through that ceiling and go reach a new level.
So for those listening to this, and I'm a believer, but there's a few naysayers like, no, I don't know, it doesn't sound. How does one manifest things? Like, how does that go about? Or how do you do it in order to get what you desire?
So here's the thing, there's levels to this. Because it's based on your levels of consciousness, and we're all at different levels. So really all you need to know is what the next level of consciousness is. If you can find where you are now, you can find where the next level is and go there.
Can you sum it up? Like how many, there are 5 levels? I mean, how many levels are there?
There's 7.
There's 7. Okay, great. So let's quickly go over those 7 levels. I think that's
really gosh, good. I don't know that I can. I love to have this conversation, but I don't know that I can go over like that.
Just briefly, just so that, because there's a lot of people. My golfing buddies are like, nah, I don't believe that stuff. That's mumbo jumbo. I don't care about that. And then you talk to them differently. They go, well, yeah, I kind of believe that. And but the wishy-washy talk sometimes they don't like. And
I know. So here's what I'd say. I'll kind of speak into what levels I went through.
Yes, please.
And I love to,
Then we'll jump into what you purchased recently, the multiplex.
So ultimately the first level is, let's say, and you can say not the first level, but the level that I was in. I was very much in like what they call the egocentric level, which they give it a color called the red. You're in survival mode. Anything and a lot of what you do and think about is, how do I take care of myself? Because there's a need for safety. There's a need for the most basic needs that we all have, like safety being one of them. And I just felt constantly unsafe and on alert. And so anything that I was operating and calling and attracting to myself were things for self-service. Beyond that, you have a level we call the absolutist level, which is blue. And it's kind of like a level up from that. And then there's orange, which brings you to and this is where a lot of business owners come to. This is where our society has been in for a long time. When you think of the Industrial Revolution, we're in like, let's conquer mode. It's action mode. It's New York. It's, that vibration of let's go and get it. We're all moving in a certain direction in that action. And that was me in those years. So that was me moving up the levels of consciousness from being like where I was in those 2 weeks at COVID, just feeling like the world is ending and not being able to operate in any way, to moving into a consciousness of like, wait a minute, there is something else, and there is a oneness within society and within us, to then like, I can actually do something about it. I can actually go and do a challenge. I can actually go read a book. I can hire a coach. I can, get within a new network. I can, figure out what my next step is in real estate. So just putting that action into it. So it's just kind of moving up these new ladders of consciousness, which will lead you to different results. And that's really what our role is. So how do you manifest? Again, depending where you are if you're still in the red, in the egocentric level, all you have to do at that level is start to focus on things that make you feel better. So when people say it's all about positive thinking, and then others say that's like silly, it really depends what level you're on. If you're at a level where it's hard to see anything positive thinking is your solution, is what's going to get you to the new level of consciousness. Because now you're like taking focus from anything that's negative. And that's really what I had to do. I'm like, I'm just going to stop thinking about COVID. I turned it off. I didn't watch the news. I was away from social media. I'm not talking to anybody about it. I was just, I isolated myself from anything that felt negative to me at the time because I just couldn't be absorbed in that. And I focused on self-development and the coaching calls and the books and different conversations that got me out of that state of consciousness. And that was a good start. And that's going to allow you to start moving forward. Now, how do I manifest at this different level? It may sound simplistic, but at this point, it's just a knowing and a lack of resistance that there is, that I just know that I create. So the orange is like you're the creator of your life. You're conscious of that now. You take a lot of responsibility. It's no longer about what everybody else is doing to you or what your parents did to you or what the government's doing to you. It's about, the emotions and vibrations that you're living with every day that is generating and creating that reality around you.
Well put. Very well put. I love it. Love it. I mean, I can go on and on about this talk. I find it just very uplifting. So that's wonderful. Is there a book that people can tap into? You suggest a couple that would be beneficial to them?
Yeah, so there is this book that I quite like. I'm just gonna pull it up. It's called Letting Go, the Pathway of Surrender. He actually has, I'll get the author's name, David Hawkins. He actually has quite a few books, but that one was so powerful. I mean, all of them are. And he gives, like, what I find really helpful when I use it even with my kids is he gives it an emotional scale. Which similar to the levels of consciousness, it has colors and you kind of can see where your emotions are at and how to move yourself up the ladder to get to emotions that are in the high vibration state.
How old are your kids?
They're 9 and 10.
Oh, great age. Yeah, mine's 10 and 12. So yeah, they can be moody at times for some no particular reason. So you say this. So what do you do with the children in order to?
So I really want them to tap in and recognize what is it that they're feeling, what's the emotion they're having. So I'll ask like, what are you feeling right now? And then we pull up the chart and like they sometimes will do it. Sometimes they don't want anything to do with it. And sometimes like I'll encourage them. Like, what are you really feeling right now? Is it anger? Is it, hunger? Is it fear? Is it like just so that they can name it? Because awareness is the beginning of it all. If you can be aware of what is going on within your emotions, that gives you such power to now like start to do something about it. That's really what I want them to the bottom of understanding that, but also there's a way out. Sometimes anger is actually a step up from something else that was even lower. So if we're moving up to anger, let's celebrate that because that's good. That's better than the vibration you were in before.
But like what you said, it all starts off with awareness. If you're not aware, you're in denial. You haven't even done the first step to growth. Awareness is so key. Maybe we should bring it back to real estate a bit. So what is it you're working on now?
Yeah. So during that search period, one of the things, and me asking the question, how do I scale but do less? I started talking to the most veteran real estate investors that I knew. Like who do I know that has been doing this for a long time? And I literally called them up or send them messages or emails, whatever way I could, and touch base with them and had conversations, ultimately asking for advice and learning from them. And I saw a common theme. They were all, if not like, but one of them doing multifamily. And I thought, if multifamily is where I'm going to end up eventually, as I keep doing this, why not start now? So that's really when I decided that multifamily was the path that I wanted to go. And then we scaled pretty quickly from there. We had about 20 units with the 4 plexes, and I got to about just under 100 units within 18 months.
Awesome. Awesome. In what area of Ontario?
Yeah, so we actually shifted out of Ontario,
Really?
Which was another big change. So I most of my multifamily is in New Brunswick.
Oh, really? Okay. And how do you tell me? So let's share one of those, the recent purchase acquisition that you've done, or something that was successful, and investors, all investors are all happy with it. You gave their money. What give us a good story about the multiplex?
Yeah, so I'll tell you about our biggest one.
Mm-hmm.
So we purchased a 50-unit apartment building 2 years ago now. We just completed 2 years. And our whole intention was to do renovations and refinance with CMHC, energy efficiency, MLI Select product.
Yes, of course.
So we purchased the building for $4.25 million. Put about the same in renovations, and we did everything. Heating pipe, electrical, plumbing, all the units, appliances, everything was redone.
This is in New Brunswick.
This is in New Brunswick, yes.
Okay.
And we just signed a term sheet last week for the refinance with CMHC MLI Select. 95% loan to value, 50 years amortization, and the valuation came in at about $13 million for that one.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you. It's really has been. So we're able to give all our investors their original capital back plus some profits. And they still own their shares in the building for the next 5 years.
That's awesome. So they're all equity investors, no debt investors. That's
so 95% of our investors are equity. Mm-hmm.
Cool. That's really good. That's, you need connection, deep connection with equity investors. Debt investors are less connection is needed, it seems.
Yeah, when people ask me how do you raise capital, it's a relationship building. Mm-hmm. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, and I with your background in pasturing, the connection is there. I think I see the link.
Yeah.
So what's a typical investor that you work with?
Yeah, great question. Mostly looking for, successful professionals that don't really have the time to do what I do and what we bring to the table, but have, the funds, and they want to invest long-term. They want to invest in real estate, but they don't really have a desire to go and do it themselves. So I always use my sister as a perfect example. She is one of our investors on the equity side. She is a director at her company, really busy schedule. A few years back, she attempted to say, I'm just going to go and buy one too. I see what you're doing. I'm going to go try to do it too. She went out and looked at properties and worked with a realtor for a few months and came back to me. She's like, never mind. I don't know how you do this thing. I don't want to do it. Here's my money. Just invest it for me. It's just, this is my retirement. I don't even need the cash flow right now because I don't want to pay more taxes. Just, invest it, help me grow it for the future.
Now,
so really, that's the ideal.
And do all investors, is it RSP money? Is it lines of credit? Is it cash? Like what kind of, what funds are needed for people to invest with you?
So on the equity side, cash is your best bet. We don't have an MFT, which would allow us to use registered funds for the equity piece. And I wouldn't suggest a line of credit, although some investors have done it despite my, recommendations, or me not knowing is the other thing. But because we can't really service the debt necessarily. Usually when we're purchasing a building, it takes us a minute to get it stabilized. That's the whole point. We purchase something that needs value, and it's not always renovation. Sometimes it's incremental rent increases. Sometimes just building management that needed fixing. Like it could be different things. However, it would take us a minute to stabilize and gain that extra value. And then the other thing that happens is when you're financing a 95% loan to value, quite leveraged. So I wouldn't say cash flow is the highest thing. This is a trade-off. You're getting your original capital back. You have no more money invested in this deal, and you will get some cash flow, but it won't be the highest amount of cash flow because we're quite leveraged. So cash is ideal.
Oh yeah, that's great. So awesome. So this is amazing story from what you're telling me from beginning and where do you see yourself in the next 10, 15 years? Like, where is this growing? How does it look like? What do you see?
So a little while back, I'd say end of last year, I felt like I reached one of those ceilings that I was talking to, but I was like, okay, we've had all this amazing growth and success, because I have to be honest, as you know, with the markets having gone the way it has in the last couple of years, I feel so grateful. This is the last building that we're refinancing to pay all of our investors back. So by the end of the fall, we would have paid all of our investors back plus profit in this year. And I'm so grateful for that and what we've been able to do there. We've been able to double the valuation of every building, a minimum double, in all of our buildings that we've operated so far. So I feel
and
really
most of it is in New Brunswick, or
yeah.
Oh, okay, neat.
Yes, yeah. So I did feel like I'm like, okay, this has been great, but how do you scale and not continue to do exactly the same things that I was doing before? Because I need growth. And something so interesting happened to me at the end of last year. How much time do we have? I don't want to be.
We got another 10 minutes or so. I mean, I'd say another hour, but I got another call coming up. But I mean, we can always talk again. There's no, my producers are not flagging me going, okay, we got to cut it down. We could do another episode later down the road, but please tell me more.
Okay, it was so interesting because I'm going to bring it back to the pain that I was talking to you about earlier. I had started a new business besides the real estate that I was doing. I do like Ace Properties is my asset management company. I do it full time. That's acquisition and operations of the apartment buildings. And we have a development as well, multifamily development. And then I had started this, I'd say side business with like a virtual agency. I partnering with somebody that was already doing, because I needed an operational arm to my business. And I figured we might as well offer that service to all of the other real estate investors. But at the end of the day, it was taking a bit too long to take off. I needed way more energy and time that I was willing to give. The profitability margin wasn't there. And I just felt stuck in it for a little too long, and felt stuck in a little bit of a rat wheel. And I'm like, again, feeling that disconnection, feeling like something is off, but not knowing how to stop or what to change. And then Halloween of last year, I was carving pumpkins with my kids and using this large kitchen knife, and I cut my right hand really badly. 3 fingers, and cut through a tendon and a nerve. So surgery, 12 weeks on a cast.
Wait a sec. Does pain always have to be physical? Can it just be mental pain?
Sure. Depression is mental pain. I mean, this is the thing. Like, mental is not separate than your body.
Yes.
At the end of it, it's all connected. See, the pain in my mind was there already for a while, but I wasn't doing anything to change it. So then the physical pain came in. It's like, you're not going to stop. I will literally stop you. And unfortunately, that's how things usually happen. It takes a death, a divorce, accident, a diagnosis to like get us to like, whoa, what am I doing right now?
And most humans, I mean, we don't quite appreciate those transformative years that are challenging in order to grow to the next level. Nobody likes it. It's challenging, very challenging. But we need to go through these challenging times in order to grow.
I like to, and I don't know, I can't say that I know this for sure, but I like to believe that we don't have to, but most of us will have to. We don't have to, but most of us will.
Tell me more about that. Because if you could say a way of alleviating pain, because I always tell people, I tell my coaching clients, I say, if you want growth, you got to have some type of discomfort. Like, there's discomfort, growth goes together.
So yes, in the sense that like the contrast is what allows to show you who you really are and tap into things you wouldn't know otherwise. So we do need the duality. Don't get me wrong. We do need discomfort and we do need things. Now, pain and suffering is a state of the mind.
Yes.
So if you're able to reach those higher levels of consciousness and train your nervous system to stay there long term, to stay there longer periods of time, then you can go through, potentially for the rest of your life without experiencing such massive pain or dips into your, experience.
Very well put. I like that.
Yeah. So then this thing happened to me, and it literally, like, it was the pattern, change that I needed to like bring everything into perspective. So I ended up exiting that business, and that's when I had a reflection of like, wow, I've done a lot. I've grown so much, created so much wealth, and brought my family so far, and I feel so grateful. There's so much impact here. But I feel like I'm tapped out again. I'm a little burned out. I was burned out.
Yeah.
I need to grow, but I don't know how from here. So since then, I've been in this experience of like, what's that? How do I, going back to the reflection and the inward of like, who do I need to become to experience a new level of wealth, health, success, love, joy, happiness, like.
I like the way your perspective on it, because you say, who do I have to become in order to attract what I desire? And most people don't even think that way. They don't talk that way. So I love it.
Yeah. So I'm in that journey right now is what I'm saying. So we have a development project on the go. We're finalizing our most recent acquisition. I have a development project on the go that takes some of my time. And I think development is what we're mostly looking at moving forward. But I also kind of like don't know just yet.
Awesome.
In the process of, becoming and experiencing.
So I love what you're saying here. This is amazing. What would you say for those just starting off, and what helped you along the way to get to where you are now? Kind of the 5 things that really, really helped you get to where you are now. Are there 5 elements that really helped you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going to go back to ask the right questions.
Okay.
And then go seek the answer with curiosity. A lot of that means like going inward and asking questions of yourself that we're scared to. Again, like, what are my limiting beliefs? What is how am I stopping myself from moving forward? A lot of people would get into the coaching program within, key spot, and then they'd call me later on and be so frustrated at their coach because nothing is happening. It's not the coach, so there's just like a lot of like personal responsibility I don't think people take. I'm succeeding despite the coach or in spite or the challenges that have come my way, and many have come. People a lot say have a strong why. That was very useful to me in the beginning, having my mom and having that need of like, okay, I need to do something physically. That also depends what level of consciousness you're in. But for those that are like really need to hold on to something to keep themselves moving forward, I'd say, make sure you have something that's so like motivating to you, that's gonna, give you action. If an activity feels really, really wrong to you over and over and over again, like you keep procrastinating, doesn't matter how many times you try to get it done, maybe again, go in with curiosity. Is this even something that I'm supposed to be doing?
You mean like taxes? I'm not too fond of doing taxes. It's
yeah. Can we just not do taxes?
Awesome. Okay. So one last question. For those who don't see the link between wealth and real estate and spirituality, what books would you recommend and provide them and suggest that they read, or just reach out to you?
Yeah, so I'm putting together a course right now on this. Yeah, how to change your money beliefs. Ultimately, I'll probably come up with a better title than that. I did read a book recently, Kyle C's. I'm just gonna pull it up here.
Seems like you're gonna reach a book out at the back.
I know, I was looking for it because I have it, but I transferred my books to somewhere else. Okay. But it's called The Illusion of Money by Kyle C's.
Okay.
It was a very good book as well. Again, depends what level you're in, but that's really gives you a higher level of money energy. But I am putting together a course on this, so feel free to reach out on my website or my link tree on my social media, Adriana .Ostapenko, and to find out some more information.
Adriana, this has been a lovely experience talking with you. It's great, very grateful to have met you, and let's reconnect again, because I think what you're doing is very powerful and meaningful to you, and I'm sure is helping out many other people as well. So thank you for taking the time to talk with us.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure to meet you. I'd love to have you on my podcast sometime.
Definitely. I'd love to be on it. For sure. For sure. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. So we'll see each other again. Bye-bye.
Sounds good. Thank you.